Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of News for Normies, where I bring you some important news topics from the past week in a somewhat short time frame. If you enjoy this content, hit that like button, share, subscribe to the channel here on YouTube and Rumble, preferably Rumble, and follow me on the various social medias. Trying to grow those a little bit more as well, so any follows would be appreciated. All right, business out of the way, on to the news. So, to start, another plane crashed into a parking lot of a senior living facility in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Fortunately, none of the elderly residents were hurt, but obviously people on the plane were taken to the local hospital. Now, this plane was a very small plane. I think there was about 5 passengers on the plane, or 5 people total, one of the two, can't remember exactly. So the people that were on the plane were obviously a little banged up and were taken to the hospital, but fortunately nobody died from this. So thank God for that. Hopping over the border a little bit here, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has officially resigned from his position in Canadian government. Thank God, because that guy was awful. But there's a catch. He's been replaced by a man named Mark Carney. From my understanding, this guy was not even a politician in Canada. He was like a big-time banker with like the Bank of Britain and some like international banks and stuff. So he's got a lot of international ties, and because of that, and because of his sympathies toward China, this guy seems like he's going to be a lot worse than Justin Trudeau, which I didn't think was a sentence that would ever come out of my mouth. But this guy's probably, we got to probably keep an eye on this guy. Not to mention, too, he has Trump derangement syndrome to the highest degree. Speaking more about Canada trying to be big and bad and act tough, last week I talked about the Canadian Premier Doug Ford, who, if you didn't watch last week, he's essentially a governor of a province in Canada, kind of like we have governors of our states. Ontario Premier Doug Ford has backed down on his tariffs on electricity going to Americans. Last week, Ford said he would put a 25% tariff on electricity and even cut off power to Americans, quote, with a smile on my face, end quote. So because of this, Trump threatened a 50% tariff on aluminum and steel coming out of Canada, which then made Doug Ford back down from his threat on electricity. So it seems like Canadian politicians are starting to crack under the pressure from Donald Trump. Speaking of the pressure from the Trump administration, some good news here. Ukraine has agreed to a 30-day ceasefire as long as Russia is willing to come to the table for negotiations. So this is a long time coming, and perhaps an end to this war is finally here. I will definitely keep my ears open for news about that because I don't want more people dying, and I definitely don't want my tax dollars going to fund a war that we don't need to be involved in. Good little segue here. President Trump was going after Congressman Thomas Massie for refusing to vote on a spending bill that would put the United States $2 trillion more into debt. The bill in question would essentially continue a spending bill from the last year of Biden's presidency. If you don't know who Thomas Massie is, he is a politician in D.C. out of Kentucky. He is one of the biggest libertarians right now in Congress, one of only 2, I believe. And I agree. Our country needs to quit spending money because that has gotten us into a lot of the problems we're in now. So I think this was incredibly stupid of Donald Trump to do, and shame on anyone who agrees with Trump for his criticism of Thomas Massie. I would highly encourage you, if you don't follow Thomas Massie on social medias, do so, because you will learn a lot of stuff just from the stuff that he posts. All right. I feel like a broken record sometimes because since Trump has been elected, we've been hearing nothing but stuff about USAID. And that's where this next story comes in. Employees of USAID were instructed to shred and burn documents, which is weird. Now, obviously, this being a government agency, they're going to have backups or copies of important documents, either, a physical copy stored somewhere else or, a digital copy stored on a secure government server. But either way, it's very interesting why they're being instructed to do this. What are they hiding that they don't want people to know? It kind of makes me think about when people use a VPN on their phone or computer or whatever, and other people are like, oh, what are you doing? If you ain't got nothing to hide, you ain't got nothing to worry about. Well, the same applies to the government. If you got nothing to hide, you ain't got nothing to worry about. So what are you hiding from us? Inquiring minds would like to know. Man. And the Doge keeps doging. Doge has been looking into the VA, the Veterans Affairs, and after reviewing just 2% of the contracts so far, Doge found $900 million in waste due to DEI programs and duplicate contracts. So they're paying the same people twice to do one job. And big thanks to Drinkin' Bros Fake News for talking about this, because none of the other news shows I listened to this week talked about this at all. And I don't know, this is one that I think probably should get more attention, especially considering how many veterans have told stories about how awful the VA is. Just ask any veteran their experience with the VA, and 9 times out of 10 they're going to tell you it took way too long, they didn't get the services they needed, things like that, and it's abhorrent. These people that signed the line to put their life on the line for you and I can't get the care that the government says they should be able to get. Like, it's mind-boggling. And here's one anecdotal story about that, and I feel comfortable sharing this because the guy that told the story told it on his own podcast. One of the owners from a cigar company called Warfighter Tobacco, his name's John. He has a podcast called Warfighter Tobacco Podcast, so if you're into cigars, you can go check that out. And another one called Freedom Friends Podcast, which is just irreverent, goofy comedy type stuff. Just 4 guys sitting around just shooting the shit. And so one day they were talking about the VA, and John was talking about how he's a combat veteran, by the way. At one point he was going through a rough patch in life and was having some mental health issues. And he contacted the closest VA to his home for the mental health problems he was dealing with, and was told that they could get him a consultation several months later. If my memory serves me correctly, I think he called in like March or April and told they could get him in October. Like, what? Okay, like, that's what I'm talking about. Things like that should not be going on in the VA. And that's my biggest argument against the left when they say, oh, we should have government health care. It's like, people who served are like 10% max of the U.S. population, and they can't get the help they need. So you want the other 90% of us to do the same thing? You're out of your mind. And it's shameful that our veterans get treated this way. Okay, 1 second. Good old Dr. Pepper. All right, so some more serious news that is very concerning. Several right-leaning personalities on the internet have been subjected to swatting this week. If you don't know what this is, excuse me, a swatting is when someone calls the police in a particular person's area and says that there is a a hostage situation going on at a person's house, which is obviously a false hostage situation, resulting in local police and SWAT teams showing up to the residence and potentially just kicking in the door, guns blazing. This is attempted murder of the individual in question, because people have just lost their damn minds. So, I mean, obviously anybody with some sense in their head should think that people who are calling in these fake hostage situations, resulting in a SWAT team showing up, should be found and charged with terrorism. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that here in a minute, but this is very concerning. People like Nick Sorter, there's a guy on X who goes by the name Cat Turd, who just posts memes and kind of trolls people every day. He was subjected to like 4 of these this past week. Now, by the time the last one happened, police just kind of showed up and was just like, hey, we got another call, so, he is fine. From my understanding, everybody that had this happen to them, nobody was hurt, thank God. But this is, this shows that the left is getting crazier and crazier. Which kind of rolls me into my next story here. A street preacher in San Francisco had a gun put in his face by a transgender individual. So, I'm glad that the gun control laws in California are keeping, people safe. Sarcasm. And it's easy to point at California and their gun laws. But I also blame the church for this for the last 20 years, because the church as a whole has been weak and too tolerant of things that they shouldn't be tolerant of. And I can already hear, the modern day Pharisees screaming about how, Jesus wants you to love people and turn the other cheek. I get that, but also when people were desecrating the temple by selling sacrifices, Jesus went in and flipped over tables and chased people with a bullwhip. And also, I should have put this in my notes, I think it was Luke chapter 22:36, Jesus himself instructs the disciples, if you do not have a sword, you should sell your cloak and buy one. Okay? Now, I'm not calling for people to go and attack people or commit violence. What I am suggesting is people have their own form of protection, because there are crazy people out there. Yeah, and again, most pastors probably aren't going to be talking about this. In fact, most pastors probably don't even know this happened, because they've got their eyes too high in the sky and aren't looking around at what's going on around them. Yeah. So again, I'm not advocating for people to go attack anybody. I am simply saying you need to keep yourself safe, because there are lunatics around this country. Also, another quick story about the church being weak, and corporate media isn't going to cover this either. Over 800 Christians were slaughtered in their homes by Islamic radicals in Syria, most of whom were women, children, and priests. And I'm going to leave a link to this story down below if you want to read it. So I encourage you, if you go to church tomorrow, because I'm recording this on Saturday, and your pastor does not speak about this, you should question him why, and I would also suggest you find a new church. I am tired of pastors being weak and spineless and not talking about the things that need to be addressed in the modern world. And by the way, I did a video a while back titled Problem with the Modern Church, I think is what I called it. You can find it on my channel here if you want to go watch that too. Okay, getting back to the news. This is, oh boy, this one's gotten a lot of attention in the last couple days. A college student by the name of Mahmoud Khalil had his visa revoked, and the Trump administration is seeking to have him deported. Khalil is allegedly an organizer of pro-Hamas protests at Columbia University in New York State. And for those who are outraged about this, according to the law that's already on the books, if someone is here on a visa and is stirring up trouble, just common layman's terms here, they can have their visa revoked immediately. So Trump isn't creating any new law, rule, or statute. He's simply enforcing the law that's already there. As that's kind of like what the executive branch is supposed to do, enforce the laws that are already on the books. Also, it is alleged that British intelligence MI6 granted him a security clearance while he was living in the country of Lebanon. So that also makes me think that maybe we as a country need to have a discussion about our relationship with the British once more. And I know I've talked about this in the past, but all of Europe has seen a major influx of people of the Muslim faith. And, coincidentally, all over Europe, they have had gangs of child rapists just roaming the streets, but they're arresting people who are talking out about it. So, that kind of makes me think again, we need to have we need to rethink our relationship with some of these countries. Oh, man, excuse me. So, because of Mr. Khalil's situation, the left has collectively lost their minds again and proceeded to invade Trump Tower in New York. But, tell me again that it's the political right causing all the violence in the country. Police did arrive to the scene and, made arrests of people. And I think by this time, because this happened a couple days ago, by this time the scene's been cleared out and people were made to leave. But the bigger question I have is who funded these people and why do they have so much free time on a Thursday? I'm at work Monday through Friday, 8-9 hours a day. So, what do these people do all day? It just blows my mind. Yeah, crazy. This is another very sad piece of news. And love the network or hate it. I'm not giving opinions one way or the other here. Just telling you what happened. InfoWars journalist Jamie White was murdered outside his apartment last Sunday, so almost a week ago from when I'm recording this. He was killed in Austin, Texas, after someone was trying to break into his car for a second time. Now, from the article that I read, it states that it was basically a burglary gone wrong, but the timing of this is a little too coincidental with all of the swattings that I just talked about a few minutes ago and attacks on Tesla dealerships recently, which will lead me into my next story here. Again, because the left are just... Not everybody that is a Democrat is crazy, okay? I just want to make that clear. But the way that you all vote enables these crazies to do these kind of things. So, more Tesla dealerships have been shot up, and a left-wing lunatic was arrested recently for throwing a Molotov cocktail, or just a firebomb if you don't know what that is, into a Tesla showroom floor. And a quite common sense here, President Trump has since condemned these attacks and said that they'll be prosecuted as domestic terrorism, just as it should be. And that's the whole point of these attacks. It's to get people to be scared of their association with Tesla, which is funny because Tesla was kind of like the pioneer of the modern electric vehicle. They were originally headquartered in California, who's all about the EV stuff and environmental protections and all that other stuff. And they ran Elon Musk out of the state and now hate his cars. I cannot wrap my mind around that logic. Also, Kash Patel has sworn that the people conducting swattings and attacks on Tesla dealerships will face the full force of the law, as they should. This goes back to something I said last week. I hope that Republicans start dealing with these people the same way that the previous administration dealt with more right-leaning people. Not because I want, some kind of vengeance or anything. I want people who are committing crimes to go to jail. Finally, last thing on this matter, Pam Bondi made another appearance on Fox News discussing this as well. So maybe if Pam got off TV and did her fucking job, these kind of things would stop. Also, where's those Epstein files, Pam? We're still waiting on them. I do not like that woman, if you haven't caught that by this point. Okay, finally, last story. Rumble, YouTube, and X were all hit by a cyber attack this past Monday. So if you noticed anything weird going on those platforms on that day, this is why. Elon Musk says that the prominent IP address linked to the attack on X originated from Ukraine. So either somebody within Ukraine is pissed at Elon or Trump for their views on the Ukraine war and pulling military aid a week or two ago. That could be the case. Or maybe, just maybe, people who work within the FBI and CIA who want to keep this money train going along are intentionally trying to sabotage these platforms, primarily X, to undermine the Trump administration. So that's all I got this week. Keeping it kind of short and sweet to the point. Hopefully no more of these attacks on Tesla dealerships or anything like that happens. Hopefully no more planes fall from the sky, because that seems to be happening more now. But it might just be, media attention on that we're paying attention to it or something. I don't know. That's why I call this News for Normies, because I just try to get it to people who don't really pay attention to the news. So that's all I got for news this week. If you got normies in your life, like the show, share it with them. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. The comments do help boost the algorithm a little bit. And take care. Stay safe out there. And I will see you all next week. Thank you.